Fighting drugs costs us £3 million a day. Yet drugs have never been more readily available. And addiction rates to the most serious drugs like heroin are rising fast. It's time to think the unthinkable and give heroin to the addicts who cannot live without it. I'm Dr. Clive Froggatt and used to be called the most powerful GP in the UK. Why? Because I was a consultant to a succession of health secretaries and Thatcher's advisor on the NHS reforms. What they didn't know is that I was also a heroin addict. In its pure form, heroin is a clean drug. It doesn't harm the body like alcohol. And given a reliable supply, an addict can hide their dependency perfectly, just like I did. But it's illegal, and when my secret was discovered, I was suspended.
I lost pretty much everything. I lost my home, my job. I lost my reputation.
I now work as a drugs counsellor, and in my experience, addicts use heroin to mask deeper problems. Heroin is merely the sticking plaster over the wound. There are thousands of heroin addicts in Britain, so I conducted an experiment. How long could I walk through London Soho before spotting one? In less than 5 minutes, I bumped into 36-year-old Gary, who's been on crack and heroin for over 20 years.
What's an average day like for you?
First thing I'll do, I'll probably go out shoplifting or begging, you know, make a few quid to get some heroin to top up and a bit of crack.
How easy is it to score around here? I mean, is it a sort of 5-minute job done sort of situation?
A 5-second job.
Yeah, just to look in the right direction.
Yeah. From where we sat, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I wanted to know why, as a young teenager, Gary turned to drugs.
What type of problems were you trying to block out?
Mainly sexual abuse, you know, not from family, from babysitters. Oh, I'll look after your son, I'll take your son out for the day, you know. And, you know, you can't go back and tell your mum and dad, you know, you're scared of them kicking the shit out of you, you know.
What was taking heroin like? What did that do?
I just, you know, for that little amount of time, you know, I just didn't, you know, think about these problems and, you know, it's the best thing, you know, since sliced bread, like, you know.
It takes it away.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever tried to give you any help sort of coming to terms with the childhood abuse and stuff?
Never.
Never?
Never.
It is very hard. I mean, I was sexually abused as well, and fortunately I've come to terms with that and see it as part of my past, and it doesn't trouble me now. But it did for a very, very, very long time, and I didn't get any help. And it wasn't until I did that I could put that in perspective.
Well, I'm hoping to get some, you know. Well, I've been hoping to get some since I was like, you know, 5-year-old, but I never have, you know.
I was a doctor, and for 5 years I was seeing consultant psychiatrist after consultant psychiatrist. Not one of them ever gave me any therapy, or even suggested there might be something behind it.
No, since the age of 5, you know, I've been trying to get help, but it's never, you know, nobody's ever come to help. You know,
it's very hurtful.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm really sorry, mate. I'm really sorry.
I'm all right now.
I know that.
Maybe one day.
I wish I could say something more positive. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty tough, wasn't it? Because I mean, you could see the real emotions that drug addicts feel. You know, just because you're using heroin doesn't mean to say you haven't got feelings. And it's always the same story. People have got terrible, terrible problems long before they really get into drug abuse.
Within minutes, Gary was on the phone to his dealer, and moments later, he was sorted. Heroin is so physically addictive that Gary needs to take it every few hours, not to feel high, but just to feel normal. If he doesn't get a fix, he becomes ill, he starts to withdraw. Withdrawal means chills, profuse sweating, nausea, cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, violent shaking, and panic. Heroin can be bought on almost any British street. This is no exaggeration. I've come to Brighton, which has the highest drug death rate in England, to meet interior designer Kate Main. Her 20-year-old daughter Hannah tried drugs at 13. At 15, she started taking heroin. Hannah felt too fragile to take part in this film, but wanted her mother to speak for her.
One time I watched her inject, which I found very, very disturbing and distressing, and I've never seen that before. And what I hadn't realised is that she needed to take that heroin just to be able to function, just to be able to stop the diarrhoea, to stop the vomiting, to feel well, not to get a high. There was no sense of enjoyment in this. It was just, Mum, will you stay with me to make sure I get the dose right and I don't lapse into a coma, which I did, even though I found it one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. People really don't understand about addiction. They can be very dismissive of the addicts. I go often to quite smart dinner parties and I'm always asked, do I have children and what do they do? And I just say one's a heroin addict and the other's at college. And it always provokes a reaction because I want people to know that it can happen to families like mine, and it's so destructive and so heartbreaking for the whole family.
Hannah's problems started from birth. A rare bowel disorder severely affected the first decade of her life. Despite being bright and beautiful, Hannah felt inferior and isolated.
Low self-esteem took over and she started to go downhill. And once she'd taken that course, it was a very rapid descent. Started around about 13, and by 15, life at home was impossible with her.
Hannah's parents have spent over £40,000 in private clinics trying in vain to get her clean. Our current drug policy means that Hannah cannot get therapy until she stops using heroin. This is catch-22, because for Hannah, kicking the habit is impossible until her underlying problems are addressed.
She couldn't keep off the heroin. The drug was stronger than she was. And at times I'd go with her to meet the dealers to make sure she was safe. If it was late at night, I didn't want her out on her own.
What was that like?
It's something I never thought in my wildest nightmares I would be ever doing, driving around Brighton in the middle of the night. Sometimes you could wait almost an hour, and then these two young lads would drive up in a sort of ordinary car and the deal would be done, and then I'd be driving back knowing that if I was stopped, I could be arrested for possession of heroin.